I'm 54 and my wife is 56. We had a 19-year marriage, and just when I thought everything was solid, I discovered she was cheating on me. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. We never had kids due to fertility issues, and we even went through the whole IVF process, but it didn't work out. I do well for myself, owning vending machines and ATMs in North Carolina. My wife is an assistant store manager at Walmart, making a decent salary just under $70,000 per year. We never really had any major communication issues, and both our phones were open to each other. As time went on, though, I started noticing some changes. She would bring up an old friend of hers more frequently, giving me a detailed play-by-play of his life. It didn't quite register as a red flag at the time, but looking back, I realize I should have paid more attention. Despite this, we carried on with our lives, working, having date nights, and maintaining a decent sex life. Then came that fateful night when she texted me, saying she'd be late due to inventory at Walmart. It's a big deal, and she usually worked late during these times, so I thought nothing of it initially. But when she didn't come home by 2 a.m., I couldn't shake off the unease. I drove to Walmart, didn't find her car, and the sinking feeling set in. When she didn't answer my calls, the knot in my stomach tightened. The whole situation is tearing me apart, and I'm not sure where to go from here. She texted me after an hour or so, saying she was at a friend's house with some male co-workers, having drinks. Something about that didn't sit right with me. I mean, why didn't she let me know she was heading to someone's house? We've never had trust issues before. When I confronted her about it, she got upset, accused me of being controlling, and insisted nothing was going on. But the whole situation left me suspicious, especially after the conversation we had about spicing up our sex life with threesomes. When she finally stumbled in at 4 a.m., reeking of alcohol, I didn't say much. I'm not the type to accuse without evidence, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. The next day, she apologized, claiming she got too drunk too fast. I told her it wasn't smart and reminded her how lucky she was not to get pulled over. She maintained that nothing happened with the guys. Still, I couldn't fully buy it. I warned her that if I found out she was cheating, I'd end the marriage. A few months passed and things seemed to be improving. We were trying to communicate more openly. But then, I noticed changes. Her phone suddenly face down, password protected and texting an unfamiliar number. My suspicions kicked back in. Going through the phone bill opened a Pandora's box. I noticed my wife was texting a number I didn't recognize, and they were in constant communication of thousands of texts and calls, even on the night she didn't come home until the next morning. That raised red flags, big time. I decided to do some digging on my own, checking my phone contacts against the bill. I didn't spill the beans to my wife. I wanted to uncover everything myself. So, over the next few weeks, I snooped around, emails on the computer, old phones we had lying around, but found zilch. Everything seemed to be locked away in her phone, which I suddenly couldn't access. Despite not wanting to invade her privacy, I felt pushed against a wall. That's when I took a drastic step and hired a private investigator. After handing over all the necessary info, we discussed North Carolina's divorce laws, and the investigator dropped a bomb about something called alienation of affection, where a third party wrecks your marriage. A week later, the investigator summoned me to his office with information that made my blood boil. He had evidence of my wife leaving work early, meeting this guy at his place, staying there until she had to come home. And the kicker? On 2 occasions, another guy showed up at this house, and guess who was there to greet him? Yep, my wife, sharing kisses. That was the final straw. I left the investigator's office armed with all this damning evidence on a flash drive. Grateful for his help, I headed straight to the attorney he recommended and filed for divorce immediately. The day my wife texted about being late coming home, I didn't respond. Instead, I packed my bags, called my brother, and told him everything. He was just as furious as I was. I headed to his place, knowing I needed time away to figure things out. I went home, packed a few things, and left for my brother's place. Surprisingly, I didn't get any calls or texts from my wife. I thought she'd blow up my phone when she realized I wasn't at home, but there was a reason for her silence. She was in jail, arrested for a DUI, which, in a strange way, delayed the inevitable. She bonded out before her work shift, called me, and left a voicemail, wanting to talk. I didn't answer any of her calls or respond to her messages. She was served with divorce papers at Walmart later that day. Fast forward 2 months, and the divorce hearing arrived. My wife's attorney tried to get me to pay spousal support and hand over the house and a part of my business. When my attorney presented the evidence of her infidelity, the judge ruled against spousal support and the business, but ordered us to sell the house. Fortunately, there wasn't much equity, so I wasn't overly concerned. After the divorce was finalized, my attorney and I discussed filing a lawsuit against my ex-wife's affair partner for alienation of affection. Fast forward another 3 months, the house was sold, and the ex-wife got about $15,000 from the equity. I got a similar amount. Around the same time, she got arrested for another DUI, fined, did community service, and had a suspended 2-month jail sentence. We talked a few times after the divorce regarding the house, but whenever she tried to bring up us, I hung up the phone. My private investigator found out her affair partner owned a restaurant in the area, and my lawyer and I decided to move forward with the lawsuit against him for alienation of affection. Now, I'm waiting on the court date for that. If there are any updates, I'll be sure to share them. Now, for the second story. I never thought I'd find myself writing something like this, but life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you. My girlfriend, Ashley, cheated on me with her manager at the movie theater where she works. The betrayal hit me hard, and I had to share what went down. Ashley and I had been together for nearly 3 years, and we'd been living together for the past year. Like any couple, we had our share of ups and downs, but I genuinely believed we were in a good place. A few weeks ago, an old friend from school, Emily, got a job at the same theater as Ashley. Emily and I were never super close, but we got along, and I was happy they would be working together. It didn't take long for Emily to discover what was happening between Ashley and her scumbag manager. Being the good person she is, Emily couldn't stand by and let me be kept in the dark. She called me up and dropped the bomb, providing proof in the form of a photo of Ashley and the manager getting too cozy in the break room and a video of her going into his office, not emerging for over an hour. The evidence was undeniable, and I was heartbroken and furious. Emily managed to talk me down and suggested that instead of confronting Ashley in a rage, I should take the high road while also getting some sweet revenge. It sounded crazy, but she convinced me it might be the way to go. So with Emily's encouragement, I devised a plan that would give Ashley a taste of life without me. I changed the locks on my house, ghosted Ashley completely, and left town for a week. I got new locks and changed them while Ashley was at work. Without leaving a note or sending any texts, I packed a bag and drove to a friend's place about 2 hours away. The idea was to make Ashley panic when she couldn't get into the house or reach me. The thought of her freaking out was strangely satisfying. Now, I'm waiting to see how she reacts to this unexpected turn of events. I stayed with him for a week, completely off the grid. I turned off my phone, avoided social media, making it impossible for Ashley to track me down. Throughout that week, I heard through the grapevine that Ashley was losing her mind. She couldn't get into the house, reach me, and her stuff was all locked inside. Honestly, it felt great to know my heartbreak was slowly morphing into a feeling of control and satisfaction. I knew I had to see this through. When I finally came back to town, I didn't let her know I was home. I wanted her to sweat it out a bit longer. Sure enough, 3 days after my return, she showed up at the house, frantic and on the verge of tears. I answered the door, acting like I didn't know who she was, playing it cool, asking if I could help her with something. She was hysterical, thinking I had died or something, babbling about how she was worried to death. I continued to play dumb, saying I just bought the house and had no idea who she was. I told her that someone had left a bunch of stuff in the house, and if it was hers, she should take it and leave before I burned it all. The look on her face was priceless, like she was in the twilight zone. I enjoyed watching her go through the entire gamut of emotions. I couldn't keep up the act forever, though. I finally broke character, saying I thought I recognized her, but she couldn't be the girl I thought I knew because that girl had cheated on me. The shock and realization on her face were almost too good to be true. It was like all in one moment. She understood what the last 11 days of torment were all about. I got her. I told her to get her stuff out of my house and to never call me again, ever. She started crying and begging for forgiveness, but I wasn't having any of it. Telling her she needed to leave before my new girlfriend showed up for our Netflix and chill date, even though there was no actual date planned, was a bold move, but it worked. She took her boxes and left in tears, apologizing and sobbing. It may sound twisted, but after what she put me through, I felt like she deserved it. I can't help but feel proud of the psychological torment she went through and the inconvenience of not having access to any of her stuff. Now, for the cherry on top. Remember Emily, the old friend from school who ratted out Ashley? We started hanging out more after this whole ordeal, and one thing led to another. We're dating now, and things are going really well. Life threw me a curveball, but I managed to hit it out of the park. So that's my story. I never thought I'd be one of those people posting crazy revenge tales, but here we are. Sometimes life has a funny way of working things out. As for Ashley, I hope she learned her lesson. Don't mess with someone who's willing to change the locks and leave town for a week. My advice for anyone going through something similar: don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and take control of the situation. I could have easily confronted Ashley and had a messy fight, but instead, I took the high road while also getting some sweet revenge. Look where it got me. A new and better relationship and a story that I'll never forget.